All right, we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Rabelais to call the roll.
Good morning. I'll now start the Board Insurance Committee roll call. Mr. Jeremy Hidalgo,
Present.
Mrs. Hannah Smith-Mason,
Present.
and Mr. David Lejeune is not here today, but we do have a quorum. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Hidalgo.
All right, and Mr. Touchette will be joining us here in a little bit. He's got tied up, be running a little bit behind, but we'll go ahead and run right into it with item 2.1, review and approval of the Lafayette Parish School Board Insurance Committee meeting minutes of May the 22nd.
Can I make a motion to approve, please?
Certainly, and I'll second that since I'm the only other member here. All right. Madam Secretary, we'll go ahead and call the roll.
Two for, none against.
All right, great. And I'd like to welcome Superintendent Touchette to the room. Superintendent, did you have any comments you wanted to make before we get started? We just did item 2.1.
No, Mr. Dalgo, and I apologize for coming in late. Just got off the radio and was trying to talk about good things that are going on in Lafayette Parish.
No problem. 2.2, discussion and or action regarding the Hub International Report. Ms. LaBeouf? Need some volume there.
Let's try it again. Good morning. My name is Trish LaBeouf, Director of Insurance and Benefits. I'm going to turn over for a discussion on the Hub report to Janae Arcana.
Good morning. All right. So since we were last here, we now have one additional month of claims data. May was not a good month for you. It was a very expensive month in claims. We paid a lot of claims out to Ochsner in May. We'll go through all of those pieces. If you can get me to page 3, I believe that would, or 2 is a good place to start right here. So again, these are the same graphs we look at each time I come. You can see, looking at May of 2024, you spent, with reimbursements back, just north of $6 million, or right at $6.5 million. Okay, your funding, that green line in the back, continues to be right at that $4 million mark monthly. So month over month deficit, right? That's what we've been talking about for a while now, is that the plan continues to run at a deficit. If you keep moving down, looking at the same graphical representation but without any reimbursements, you truly can see the trend on your plan, where your trend is exponentially higher right now than national trend. You have increased a lot in the last 2 years. Part of being self-insured is that every 5 or so years, you're going to have a bad claims year. You are in the middle of a very, very bad claims year. You have sick people on the plan. There's nothing you can do to stop their treatments, right? So it's not anything we can do to pull all these claims dollars off unless there is coverage for them somewhere else, okay? So let's go ahead and look at the actual dollar figures. This time period is the plan year, January through May of 2024. I don't want to spend too much time in this time period. I know we're right at the end of the fiscal year and we're all really focused on what the fiscal year is going to end up looking like. So I'll be pretty quick on this page. You can see I'm going to focus always on the right-hand column. The percent change next to it is annualized. So your medical claims right at the top, they're up 10.7% January through May of 2024 over where the plan year ended at January through December of last year, 2023. Okay, so that's a nice increase there. Your reimbursements are sitting right at $5 million. You are due a large pharmacy reimbursement in the month of June outside of the separate plan management fund from RX benefits. So once that reimbursement comes through, that net claims increase, that 17.9% we're looking at there, should level out, I should say, once we get that pharmacy reimbursement back. It's usually in the $2.5 to $3 million range. Okay. If you keep on scrolling down, Ms. Mason, I did break out for you the different contributions amongst actives, retirees, and COBRA participants, as well as what the board contributes for actives and retirees. And then you can see the percentages of each next to it. Looking at your total plan cost, which through May was $26.3 million versus the total funding at $21.2 million, that gets us to a loss ratio of 124%, or a deficit of $5.1 million for the first 5 months of the year. Now, since that's not exactly how you budget, right? It's good information, but it's not the information that you're looking for. However, if we keep going down, your reinsurance contract aligns with your calendar year, your plan year. So looking at large claimants, we look at them on the calendar year basis. That is on the next page. So if you go down one more, please, for me. We have our high dollar members for January through December of 2023 up at the top. You can see you had 15 individuals who exceeded 50% of your specific stop-loss deductible, which is at $525,000. You received reimbursement back on 6 of them. You have a lot of rare diseases on your plan. You have a lot of cancers. There is one member with a cancer on your plan that only 25 people in America are diagnosed with every year. So there are some extreme outlier conditions that you are covering, okay? And the care, I don't want you to, misunderstand anything I'm saying. The plan provides life-saving treatments to people, right? And you are paying for all of those things. We just have to figure out how we're going to do all of that together. If you go on down to the Navy, this is looking at January through May of 2024. There are 3 individuals who have exceeded the 50% mark of your specific stop-loss deductible. 1 has gone over, and you have received $102,000 back in reinsurance reimbursement on that individual. All 3 were high-cost individuals in 2023, with claims anticipated to continue on. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and look at the fiscal year performance, and I'll go through this one in more detail for you. As long as y'all didn't have any questions for me to that point, correct? Okay, great. So average medical enrollment is at the very top. The Blue Cross plan is the very first one. Average enrollment from an employee/retiree perspective is 5,400, slight decrease from the prior period. You have had an influx of people move to your Medicare Advantage plan. There are 355 on average retirees on that plan. It's a significant increase there. But total average enrollment has stuck right around the exact same. Medical claims from July 2023 through May of 2024 is at $36.8 million. That's a 16.1% increase over the prior period. Medical trend right now is 10%. So you're significantly higher than trend. Pharmacy claims are at $14.5 million. That's a 15.4% increase over the prior period. The EGWIP pharmacy claims are at $13.1 million, a 15.8% increase over the prior period. Pharmacy trend is 10% as well. Okay, so again, you're paying a lot more out, largely due to the high-cost individuals. But, you know, outside of utilization on the plan, it's getting to be more and more expensive over time. So your gross claims are at $64.49 million. Fixed costs are your admin fees, stop-loss premium, all those items are $3.8 million. It's a slight increase over prior period, but a much smaller piece of the overall pie. Your Medicare Advantage premium has increased, right? It's $835,000. That's a 34% increase over the prior year. However, when you consider there are 37% more participants, that equates, right? Every person that joins the Medicare Advantage plan, you pay a fixed premium for. So we would anticipate that the premium here that we're looking at would increase at the exact same rate. So your gross plan cost at $69.5 million, it's underlined right there, is a 15.1% increase over last year. Right now, we're almost the exact same as last year, and we still have June to go. Looking at your reimbursements, we are right at $12.5 million on reimbursements. As I said, we are still due a large rebate in the month of June from RX benefits, so that 9.15 will increase, and you're also due a $1.2 million plan management fund from RX benefits in this month. Your net total plan cost is your gross plan cost less your reimbursements, and we are at $56.9 million there. That is a large increase over your total net total plan cost from the prior period. Now, looking down at your funding. So the active employee contributions thus far have collected $8.6 million. That is 18% of the funding cost. Retiree contributions are $5.1 million. That's 11% of the cost. COBRA contributions, anybody who's on COBRA, they pay for the full premium. That's $45,000. So total employee contributions come to $13.8 million. On the board side, for actives, you're contributing $20.1 million. For retirees, you're contributing $12.79. So in totality, based on the contributions, you guys have funded $32.9 million, or 70% of the cost in funding.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know the percentage of actives versus retirees on the plan?
Yeah. So I don't have it anywhere on here. Trish, do you know off the top?
Do we happen to know those numbers? It would just put these other percentages in a better perspective.
I sent that number the other day to the superintendent based on a question. If I'm remembering correct, let me look into that total, and I will get you a percentage by the end of it. I have to pull the numbers from Blue Cross. I believe we sent that information directly on. If you're just looking at the percentage between active and retirees.
Right, just approximate number of actives on our plan, approximate number of retirees on our plan.
Okay, just give me 2 seconds. If you'll just keep moving, I'll get you that info.
All right, thank you.
All right, so if we look at your net total plan cost of 56.9, and we take out what the employees contributed of 13.8, that gets us to a net employer cost of 43.1, because at the end of the day, you still have to pay for your claims. You're paying for it anyway, whether it's been funded or not, right? Based on the funding, we're at a loss ratio of 122%, or a deficit of $10.2 million through May of the fiscal year.
A couple of documents here show, if you could scroll to the top of this page, clarify this for me. It says total average enrollment, 5,773.
Yes.
Is that lives?
No, that is the employees that work for you, not total belly buttons on the plan.
Okay, but we have nearly 10,000, like 9,000.
Yeah, you have about just shy of 10,000.
Okay.
So, Mr. Hidalgo, when Ms. Trish above shares the percentages for Ms. Mason of retirees versus actives, that percentage will be not belly buttons. It will be the number of employees versus active. So just remember, the percentage she's sharing is not as the whole.
Is that what you're looking for, or are we looking?
Well, the reasoning is, we've got actives, 19% of the cost, retirees, 11% of the cost. I'm just trying to put it in perspective, are our retirees costing more than our actives, that sort of thing. I'm just, for comparisons.
Sure, okay, I understand, but I guess what I'm saying is the total cost for a retiree, as it's stated here, should be the retiree and a spouse if they have one.
Right, no, it should.
So I would like the number of people to reflect that as well, because because to me it's misleading. We have 5,773 total average enrollment. Well, we have 10,000 people who are enrolled.
Right, I am looking for, that is
Makes
what
sense.
I'm
right?
intending. Yeah, I would love to know the total number. We're trying to see.
So that number is going to be a little different than I think what you're asking Ms. LaBeouf for, like she's shaking her head. So the number she's going to supply you is the total membership, I think, of what you would have, that 5,418. So I'm a family of 5, so my number, even though I'm one employee, one member, I am one of that 5,418, but I represent 5 people in
Right,
mine.
no, and
whereas
that's what.
most retirees could be 1 or 2. So
Right.
the breakdown of that percentage would be different that you will have to pull. If
Right,
that's what
no,
you're
and
asking
that's
for.
truly what I want to see, the different categories of our employees, like, because, we've talked about all kinds of different possibilities
Correct.
of changes and coverages, and I just want to make sure that we know the actual numbers of how many people we're talking about at each intersection.
Does that make it clear, Ms. LaBeouf, of what you're trying? Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and we can get you a per member per month cost breakdown. A lot of times I'll look at this on a per employee per month breakdown. Some groups prefer to see it per member per month. It seems like that's definitely the direction you want to go. We're happy to do it that way. Okay. Okay. The last time I was here, we talked about Ochsner and how there was a delay in claims processing due to their network dispute with Blue Cross. Since then, claims have been begun to be released and paid. The claims at Ochsner were released by Ochsner, so they were holding all of it. They didn't send it to Blue Cross and say, don't pay this claim until this date. So we don't know everything that occurred at Ochsner facilities until it is sent to Blue Cross. So there's no way for us to know what's still left. It's just like anybody who walks into the doctor's office today. We're not going to know about it until the claim is sent to Blue Cross. Okay? Claims from Ochsner. Ochsner operates with a bunch of different tax ID numbers for a bunch of their different facilities. The contracts were reloaded with Blue Cross based on tax ID number. At the beginning of May, it was some of their smaller tax ID numbers that were loaded. At the end of May, some of their larger tax ID numbers were loaded, like main campus hospital that you may go to for a transplant, right? So you'll see a fluctuation of claims dollars at the end of May on this chart when we scroll down just a little bit. So in totality, you guys in the month of May paid $1.4 million in claims for Ochsner facility claims, Ochsner provider claims, okay? It breaks out the way the chart is organized. Dates of service are in rows. So claims with a date of service in March are that top row, and you can see the date that claims dollars were paid out on. So you can see the month of May, May 6th, claims with a date of service in March were $6,100, right? As we go towards the end of May, you can see a lot of claims were paid that were incurred in March down at the end. Same thing for April. And what, is nice to see actually is there are claims that were incurred in May and paid in May. So again, it makes it all much more inflated. It was a massive, massive bill, a massive check run that the self-funded plan saw in May because of this backlog that was all pushed through at one time, right? You can see May 27th, $1.2 million just for Ochsner alone.
So it looks like you guys have the data broken down pretty well. So I don't want you to back up the slides, but back up the conversation to pretty
Sure.
much the beginning when you started and you said that May was an exceptionally high month in claims. If you back out all of the March and April numbers, was May higher than last May or last month?
Yes,
So regardless of the fact that this
yes,
delay in payment because of their agreement,
yes.
if you take out, so far as we know, if you take out all of the claims, well, hell, even if there's still more claims, that just makes it worse. If you take out March and April, the 105 plus all of the claims paid puts us where? Do you have the percentage that were?
You were still
Up.
above May of last year.
Okay.
Slightly above. It wasn't massively above, but it's still higher than.
Can you shed some light on the new agreement made between Ochsner and Blue Cross? And, I think that's very relevant, especially given the fact that, my one-liner is we've been managing discounts and not managing costs.
Right.
Do you have an idea of what the new agreement is? Is it the same? Is it kind of a rubber stamp? Or are we now paying even more for the same service at Ochsner because of the new agreement with Blue Cross? Can you shed some light on that?
Sure. As much as I possibly can, I'll share. These network agreements are not public whatsoever. I do not know what is in these agreements. Nobody except for the Ochsner attorneys and the Blue Cross attorneys will know what's in that network agreement. I do know that when they all come to the table, Ochsner will always want a higher payment than Blue Cross wants to pay, right? And Blue Cross will always want better outcomes for patients than the hospital is currently providing. Through the negotiations, they meet in the middle. I don't know where that middle is, and I don't know where they started, right? Because again, these network agreements are completely confidential. If it were going so poorly or in one direction or another, they would not have come to an agreement. I don't know if it's helpful for you to know, but Blue Cross is actually the administrator of the plan for all Ochsner employees. So they were going to come to an agreement at some point. Blue Cross sells Ochsner branded plans, right? They were going to come to an agreement. Typically, agreements are signed with a 3-year term. I don't know if that's the term of this one. And I'm sorry, that wasn't more helpful than, it was a good question.
It is
And
what it is.
I would love to know.
You can keep moving if you like.
Okay, great. Keep on going, yeah, thank you. Yeah, okay. So looking at the fiscal year, I thought it would be helpful when you think about how much in claims we've spent. Where is it? Why is it? You've got to be wondering, right? You're asking all the same questions about May that I had. So we looked at any one of your almost 10,000 individuals, so 9,625, who you guys spent more than $25,000 on from July to May of 2024. It's 270 individuals. It's a little less than 3% of your members, and they spent $21.8 million in medical claims alone. That's over half of the medical spend. So it's a significant number of individuals and claims dollars. Now you have a handful of really big outliers in there that are going to be pulled out for reinsurance purposes, but you do have a lot of people who maybe it's not the biggest thing in the world, right? Like for example, I had a baby this past year. That hospital bill came It is a Blue Cross contract that we are on. It was $30,000. So I would be a person in this group, right? There are going to be things that you pay for, and it's one time and it's over with. There are other things where it may be a chronic condition that someone lives with for a very long time, right? Like dialysis, very expensive, treatment needed to keep them going, but they're going to be in this large claimant picture. Is this surprising to see this way? Helpful? Okay. All right, you can keep on going, please, Ms. Gardner. Okay, and then I also looked at the claims distribution by age because I thought that may help as well. Ms. Mason, it's not exactly the question that you asked, but it is every individual on the plan. So you have 122 sweet little babies, which is wonderful, right?
I guess my only question would be of the large claimants, the 270, how many of those are, is there any way to know if they are Medicare eligible or using the Blue Cross Blue Shield option, or, is there any way to break that down?
Yeah, I have the detailed list of everybody.
Okay.
I could go through and say, look, I see your birthday based on your date of birth. We could probably move on to Medicare.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
So this chart shows you the age range of everybody. If you go down one more, the last row, I believe, is 65 plus. Oop. So you can see the second column is the number of individuals. So you can see your 65 plus group is 2,800 out of 10,644. So that would be your percentage, right? If we do that math real quick. I believe that next column is average claims payment. Yeah, average claims in the range. And then the breakout of how much is spent in that age group in totality, okay? Percentage of claims is over to the right. So you can see the 65 plus group does have the biggest percentage at 24% and 9.6 million. They also have the largest number of members, right? So that does help, or that does, increase their spend. Now, because you are self-funded, that we've talked about a bunch of times, and again, we're just looking at medical claims here. We have not included the EGWP claims. We have not included the RX benefits pharmacy claims. We're just looking at medical. To reduce your overall spend, we have got to reduce the utilization on the plan, right? I'm not saying we take away benefits from anybody, but if we move individuals to an alternate plan, could we save 9.6 million in medical claims? Yes. You're going to pay it in the form of a premium somewhere else. It's not 100% savings, but it is risk reduction. And overall, it will bring your spend down. Okay? That is the only way to manage a self-funded plan that I'm aware of.
Real quick, your 2,822 that are 65 and over, I just want to clarify, that would be a retiree and a possible spouse, correct? So
Yep.
this is actually the belly button numbers that you were talking about,
Yep.
correct? So everybody understands.
Yes, ma'am. So even if you're an employee and you're over age 65, if you're an employee and you're 40 and your spouse is age 65 or over, anyone 65 plus is in this group. So again, it doesn't mean that everyone would be removed. If you force migrated every retiree off the plan, right, which we talked about way back in April and decided against, there would still be individuals in this 65 plus chart when we looked at it again next year, because you will still have individuals who remain on your plan as an active employee, and they have that right too.
So it's about 26.5%-ish, roughly?
Yep.
So did you hear that, Ms. Mason? About 26.5%, if my numbers are right and if those numbers are right, which I expect they are.
These comes directly from Blue Cross.
Okay.
Yep. Now, if you're wondering why on the last page we had 9,000 some odd individuals and this one has 10,000 some odd individuals, This chart looks at anybody who was ever on the plan in this last year. So people who are hired and then who leave and come in and out, all of that happens. So this is a number in totality. Okay. Now, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but the last time I was here, we talked about what other options could there be for the retiree population. There were some questions around that. So on page 12, I do have 3 different options with some pros and some cons. So I can remain on the self-funded plan like everybody is at today. Pros, no one makes any change from what they are accustomed to, right? Anytime you make a change, it is terrifying. We understand that. But the con of that is that there's significant cost and financial risk to the board. Okay, we've gone through that whole exercise before. The next option is the Group Medicare Advantage Plan, which you offer one today on a voluntary basis, right? Pro is that you have a fixed cost for a retiree versus your current claims cost. So it significantly reduces your self-funded liability. But on the con side, the retirees are going to have to make some minor changes to how they receive care and no longer have, or they won't have freedom of choice over which Medicare Advantage plan they're on. It's the group plan that you choose is the one that's offered, and that's it, right? Today it's Humana, tomorrow it could be United or Blue Cross or whoever. The only other option that I know of out there is an individual Medicare Advantage or Medicare Supplement plan that's partially funded by the board via a health reimbursement account. So conceptually, what you would do is say, look, instead of this group Medicare Advantage plan that we pay $300 in premium a month for, instead we'll give every retiree $300 in purchasing power to go and purchase the Medicare Supplement or Advantage plan of their choosing. Okay? The board would still have a fixed cost per retiree, reduce your self-funded liability. It gives the retiree the freedom of choice that they've been asking for. Now, there are some cons to that. A group Medicare Advantage plan like you have today with Humana, you're typically going to have better rates than most because everybody is pooled together as a group on that retiree plan. The other Medicare options are going to be age-rated. So depending on the age of that retiree, it could be more expensive, right? Or it could be less expensive. Just depends on where you are in your life. Then the other con is that if the individual plan that the retiree is looking to obtain is more expensive than, let's say, the $300 that you give them, and the HRA, they'll have to pay the difference. Okay, so freedom of choice is great, but if it's much more expensive, they'll pay for it. There are vendors that manage this process for employers just like yourself. So it can help individuals find the coverage they're looking for and then help pay for it, and you're paying that one vendor.
So freedom of choice, just as it's stated, as a statement, certainly is what everybody on earth wants, freedom of choice.
Yeah.
I'm concerned about this choice because isn't this choice the Advantage plan in a box, an on-the-shelf plan that the retirees who I've spoken to who are concerned about Medicare Advantage, this is what they're concerned about. The on-the-shelf plan that doesn't have the benefit, not the plan that we currently have.
You're
or not
correct.
the plan that we would continue to have, regardless of who the administrator is, whether it's United Healthcare, Blue Cross, Humana, whoever.
That's right.
Whoever we would have would be similar or the same as what we currently have, which is not the same as what we're calling freedom of choice. And so I'm concerned about that. So can you describe the differences, just high level? We don't have to get into details, but describe the differences, because I know a lot of times folks say, well, the Humana Advantage plan is not as good as the Blue Cross Blue Cross Advantage plan. And I would like for you to clarify from your professional experience, what is the difference? What is the difference in the United Healthcare Medicare Advantage plan the Humana, not our plan, this freedom of choice plan, the one that's in a box on the shelf, that the majority of the world, when they become retired and they're no longer on their employer's plan and they're forced into the market, that's that freedom of choice plan that I'd like for you to describe. What's the difference between Humana, United Healthcare, and Blue Cross? First,
Sure.
let us know, is there a difference? And then describe it.
Okay. Before I go into that, the freedom of choice option, you would also be able to choose a Medicare supplement plan, which I know is what a lot of people are looking for behind me, right? So that is different, right? And you wouldn't have to go in the Medicare Advantage bucket, right? The individual Medicare Advantage bucket is much different than the group Medicare Advantage bucket, which is what your point was, right? On the group basis, the group Medicare Advantage plans are much richer, again, because it's an insurance policy underwritten on a group basis. When you move out to the individual, you're looking at what you can afford, so your benefit matching, right, that the insurance company is going to pay for you is much less. You're going to have higher cost share, right? That's the big difference between the Medicare Advantage that's sold to the rest of the world on an individual basis versus the group Medicare Advantage plan that we have looked at for you guys and that you offer today with Humana, right? There are still networks and rules and things of that nature where if you're on any of these Medicare Advantage or Medicare supplement type plans, you still need to see a provider that accepts Medicare, right? That's the main overarching rule here that we all need to participate with. If you see somebody that doesn't accept Medicare, that's a cash pay visit, right? That's a big difference from where you are right now on the self-funded side because you're just looking for anybody who accepts Blue Cross, right? Not anybody who accepts Medicare. And those two are different lists. Do you have any more questions for me? That's really all I have today. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mason, do you want to make a motion to accept this report?
Yes. I would like to make a motion to accept the, let's see, do we have the hub report? Thank you.
And of course, I'll second that. All right, do we have any public comment on the report that was given by Hub, by Ms. Janae? All right, any further comments or questions? Ms. Mason?
None.
All right, if you call the vote.
Two for, none against.
Motion carries. Item 2.3, discussion and or action regarding the Fund 85 budget report. Ms. LaBeouf.
Good morning, everyone. Ms. Gardner, if you could get up the one pager that has all of the financials on it, not the medical account one, the other one. Yes, ma'am. So good morning. Essentially, I'm going to re-emphasize the accounts that essentially have the footnotes. I thought those were the most important ones based on changes that have happened since last time we spoke in May. So as you've heard from Hub when they were up here a moment ago, the medical claims account from May to June has drastically increased. We're trying to project it as best that we can based on the fluctuations within that account. So if I could ask you briefly, Ms. Gardner, to go to that medical one-pager, rather, and let me start with the medical claims account first. The other one, Ms. Gardner, I'm sorry. It says the medical claims. The one to the right of the hub. There you go. So I just wanted to provide information so that everyone could see our weekly claims weeks since last we were here. Every single week we get a bill from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and it details those claims within that given week based on a week ending date. So as you can see, based on those Ochsner claims that have come through and the high claimants that Ms. Arcana spoke of, our claims are increasing progressively with a huge increase week ending last week on 6/4 at the $1.8 million. So let me segue for a moment. Within that $1.8 million, we had several high claimants within that given week. We have been notified by Blue Cross Blue Shield that we still have 3 more high claimants that are coming through future claim weeks. Based on that, I believe in those footnotes, it notes that there's 4 in the recent claim week that we just received, which is that next projection that you see, that $1,071,000 was our projection for this current claims week. We actually had a good week. It reduced down to a total of $646,364. So as you can tell, it's been difficult to project, in particular the claims account, part in fact due to the Ochsner's claims plus the high claimants. And if you note on my footnotes within the other one-pager that we can segue back to in a moment, I had noted that there were 4 high claimants that we were still waiting on, a total of $413,752. One of those high claimants, $88,000, came in on the $646,000 bill. So now we just have 3 pending high claimants that we should see prior to June 30th. So we're still keeping projections at the $1,071,000 for the last 2 weeks of this particular fiscal year because I still believe you're going to see high claims weeks coming through. I believe it's better to project them higher, especially since it's very difficult right now to get that account in order because it's fluctuating so much. I suspect that we're going to see at least 800 to 1 million within those remaining claims weeks. So we've projected a little bit within that range. That way, we are in a more safer zone and more conservative remaining out this fiscal year. So since we're on this piece right here, when I made those annotations on June 6th, I had noted that we are projecting an over budget of $691,000 projection. If we continue to work through the remainder of this fiscal year, obviously we're still going to be over budget. We checked the account this morning and the deficit balance, and we're still remaining right around $10 million. That account's fluctuating some, but not very much, in addition to what Ms. Janae spoke of earlier with the RX benefits reimbursements that are coming through. That should help our overall deficit. However, you're still looking at high projections for the remainder of this fiscal year. Does anyone have any questions on that in particular? Okay. Ms. Gardner, if you'll go back, we'll just work through those footnotes. So essentially, your medical claims account is projecting high. That's that 4th footnote right there. Additional annotations just note that there's stop loss that's coming through. It just gives you an idea of what to expect in that account for 2 more billing cycles. With the pharmacy claims account, we are projecting a $29,726,000 for the remainder of the fiscal year. We did see some adjustments in the last quarter with regard to Express Scripts. We had a dip in those claims, which is why the projections are slightly less from May to June. The next footnote is the pharmacy reimbursements. It's footnote number 7. If you'll scroll down just a bit, Ms. Gardner. So based on the last time I was here, we had noted that the pharmacy reimbursements were right around 4.2 million, still almost around that same total, 14.238. We are reducing that just a bit with our projections, just based on how those Blue Cross reimbursements came through. I really think it's just a billing concern, and we'll see it bump back up in the next reimbursement versus those reimbursements actually being lower than expected. So just wanted to note why there was a difference between May and June within the number 7 footnote. So the number 8 footnote, as Hub mentioned earlier, we are seeing a lot of high claimants come through, so your reimbursements are going to increase in that account. It's increasing by about 100, with our projections, about 100,000 more than where we were from May to June. The 9th footnote, again, just in case I'm asked about it, no, the July increase with regard to premium is not included within the premium collections. We likely won't see that until August, by the time payroll finally settles through, because the next time that we come back in July, I don't believe that we'll have that information available to you. But essentially, you're going to see a lot of resignations and retirements this time of year just due to the contracts ending and people leaving the school district. So you're going to see fluctuations within the premium collections account in addition to the life insurance account, which are both footnotes number 9. All in all of the accounts are projecting out like we anticipated, with the exception of the medical claims account. Those high claimants are cause for concern, and it's been more difficult to project it exactly for you. Are there any questions with regard to this one pager? Anything with regard to financials and Fund 85? No? Okay. If I'm Mr. Hidalgo, that's all that I have to report to you today with regard to Fund 85.
Okay. Ms. Mason, I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make the motion to accept the report.
Second, is there any public comment? Okay, Ms. Miles?
I hope I don't turn it off. There you go. First, I want to thank Ms. Mason for asking for the percentage of retirees, so you can see that percentage as opposed to the percentage of the claims, which was an excellent question. I saw Mr. Hidalgo's shock when nobody spoke. I am assuming, and I think we all are, that we are hiring a new consultant. So there were 3 options presented by Hub, and we're anticipating additional options perhaps from the consultant. I think that's why these aren't the only 3 options, as I understand it correctly.
I think you're correct. We will be hiring a consultant. I wouldn't call those options. I think that the Hub representative just gave some ideas. Ideas, though, since you bring it up, ideas that every single professional, whether they've been our consultant or not, have been telling us for about a decade.
Well, Hub has been telling us for a decade, unfortunately.
I have to respectfully disagree. You continue.
And the other question I had, we used to get when we had our reports, a report of the contracts that we entered into. And I'm curious as to when we entered into a contract with Lockton Insurance.
Ms.
I don't think
Jennifer?
I was here, so.
We are not into an official consultant contract with them.
But they are working here,
They
correct?
did some outside work for us to look at some contracts that we had.
But we have no contract with Lockton?
We have no long-standing contract for them to be our consultant, if that's what you're asking. Like Hub, they are not our consultant, no, ma'am.
So we don't have a contract with Lockton?
I
To be
I
our
don't think that
consultant.
public comment is question and answer.
Oh.
Yeah, we've allowed it before, but we're not going to go back and forth. Mr. Superintendent, can you just clarify, do you have the authority to hire contracted individuals, loose term contract? I know you didn't sign a contract, but can you contract with a handshake? Oh, you have a limit, I believe, that,
Yes, yes, and we again, I will just tell you that we are seeking to hire a consultant. And what we have in front of us could very well change, and I'm hoping it does because we need to look at other options. So, again, we're in the process of getting that taken care of, and I'm hoping that in our next agenda item, that our team can give you guys all a report of where we are in that process.
That would be great. And I don't know why we haven't looked at Calcasieu, but if anyone hasn't looked at Calcasieu, that would be a good suggestion as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Also, I just want to make the comment that, there are several people who will be, putting together our RFQ for this hub included, I assume. So, if they come back and give us all the same information that they've been giving us, I don't see a reason to just throw hub out the window. So, just wanted to be very clear on that.
any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll go to vote.
Two for, none against.
Motion carries. Item 2.4, discussion and/or action regarding the Insurance and Benefits Department staff report. Ms. LaBeouf.
Ms. Mason, can I go back to your question that you asked earlier? Do you mind if I do?
Yeah,
I do have
please.
answers for you. I remembered that as you guys were voting. I apologize. So we pulled the Blue Cross reports. So let's take a look at subscribers in particular. So those are just our members. That would be like me as an employee. That would not include my family members. Active members are 3,047. Retirees are 2,417. Currently, that number is 5,464 total, okay? So then that would, in that perspective, subscribers are about 56% actives, 44% retirees. So then I pulled numbers this morning. Keep in mind, all of these numbers fluctuate constantly because you have members coming on and off the plan. So total membership, that would be me and my family members. There's a total of 9,675 members, of which 6,152 are active members, or 64%, and then retirees are 3,523, or 36% in that respect. If you're trying to look at it from a subscriber to total membership basis. So, any questions on that? Okay. I just wanted to go through the staff report and just give you some updates on 3 topic items. The first one is with regard to the status of the group health insurance consultant quote that you were speaking of a few moments ago. It has been issued to a total of 10 companies or individuals for quote. It went out on the 5th of June to those companies. They have a 3-week turnaround. The deadline to respond back to LPSS with regard to the quote is June 26th at 4 p.m. Members in organizations or individuals will be notified if they are the selected individuals to present to the Board Insurance Committee on July 3rd. The Board Insurance Committee will have a presentation of those individuals or companies on Wednesday, July 10th at 9 a.m. The BIC, the Board Insurance Committee, will make a recommendation to the school board, and the school board will vote on July 31st at 5 p.m. with regard to the group health insurance and related benefits quote. Questions? Okay. My next piece to discuss is department communications. I just wanted to go over a few pieces, just a few reminders of how we communicate with members to include active and retirees. For active members, we send to your work email. Please, please, please get connected. That's typically our standard form of communication. Please check your work email regularly. For retirees, we do send to your personal email as long as we have it on record. So if for some reason you're not receiving district communications, that's cause for concern, definitely reach out to us. We can make sure that we add your email information to our records. We have also been sending via text lately, where you can click on the link. It says from LPSS Insurance and Benefits Department, and then you can look at the item, the PDF that's in there, and it too has clickable links within it. So we're trying numerous different resources to make sure that members are aware of everything that we're communicating. And then sometimes for retirees, we do use the call option to either remind you to check your email or check your text message that there's something important coming from the department. Active members also receive a monthly newsletter, second Wednesday of the month. Please read the newsletter. It has a lot of important information on it. And there's another resource where you could go to our department website under the main LPSS website. You'll want to go to departments, then insurance and benefits, and then we have numerous plus signs on there where you can click the plus sign. The one in particular that you're looking for is the 2024 district communications. We've been trying to store any district communications within that drop-down. So we have been receiving a few calls from retirees in particular with regard to their LSU fiber accounts, okay? Either stating that you're not receiving district communications, that's a concern. Essentially, because our email comes from a insurance-no reply, you're going to have to accept it as a viable email option so that your LUS fiber, I may have misstated that earlier, I apologize. Your LUS fiber email can accept those emails coming from insurance. So if you're having issues, we can help talk you through it, hopefully, and remind you that it's likely, our emails are likely going to your spam account until you note that the insurance-no reply at LPSS Online is a safe email account so that you can get our communications. So just a friendly reminder, if that's you, I think there's less than 150 LUS fiber emails that we have on record. That's why we've been also trying to send out the text messages at the same time. That way you're getting it in one form or fashion. There's also a new process with regard to retirees in the department. We are asking, just to better serve you, that you schedule an appointment with Ms. Ashley Wright if you need to either record your Medicare card, or perhaps you need to enroll in Humana, or if it's going to be a lengthy conversation to where we can devote some time to you and answer all your extensive questions, definitely connect with us. That way we can get you on Ashley's calendar. There's clickable links within her email to where you can set up an appointment with her directly, or you can certainly call her and she can add it to her calendar. If you're just needing general questions, we can certainly answer those over the phone for you, but if you need something more extensive, in order to better serve you, we're asking that you make an appointment with Ms. Ashley. That way she can devote that specific time to you and your questions. Any questions on any of that? Okay. And then my last item on my staff report is the Hub Service Agreement Addendum. So the attorney made a recommendation based on the board insurance. Let me revise that. The Board Insurance Committee made a recommendation to the Lafayette Parish School Board on 3/25 at the 3/25 meeting. The Lafayette Parish School Board approved the request that they wanted to revise and provide an addendum to the Hub contract that we currently have. It was vetted by our attorney, and our attorney made a recommendation to which Hub reviewed and sent our way. The superintendent has since signed off on that addendum. We've sent it back to Hub. We now have their signatures, and now we have a revision with regard to the compensation piece that was in question before. And I do have confirmation from Hub and from both Blue Cross and Humana that any future commissions have stopped. So Hub will not be receiving any future commissions. One of those was dated a 5/1 date, and the other was dated a 4/1, just based on billing purposes in our contact with those prospective vendors. So I just want to give you an update that there has been a revision, and we do have it on file moving forward, that the compensation piece has been revised per your request.
And Mr. Hidalgo, this was in reference to the question about whether or not they were receiving funds outside of the payment. I will just say also, for out of transparency, that Trish, am I correct, that Hub has told us in writing that they would not be submitting a quote as we relation to moving forward, right?
You are correct, yes, sir. Of the 10 companies listed, Hub is none on there. And that's all that I have with regard to my staff report, unless there's any questions.
All right, Ms. Mason?
I'd like to make a motion that the Board Insurance Committee accept the department report presented by staff.
Second, is there any public comment?
Good morning. I have a concern. I'm Carol Broussard. I've asked before, and I'm going to ask again. We have 400 to 600 retirees who don't use text messages because they don't have cell phones. They can't afford it. They don't do email because they don't know how to use a computer. How are we communicating with them?
Please.
I think Ms. LaBeouf answered that question earlier. You want to repeat?
You want me to clarify it? So that's why we've been sending out text messaging, because we do have a larger number.
Excuse me.
They also do phone
Excuse
calls.
me. It's 2024. If someone doesn't have a text capabilities or email capabilities, we're doing the best we can to figure it out. And if you'd allow Ms. Trish to finish her statement, we'd appreciate it.
So we do have cell phones on record. They're noted within that mobile number that we pull the text info from. We have realized that we do have more cell phones on record than we do have emails. There's a larger gap with the emails. There's about 40 members who we do not have cell phone numbers on, and we have been sending those members paper communications of anything that's been going out. But it is a massive effort, especially when there's numerous attachments to it in order to send out that info. I suggest one of two things. Either there's likely a family member that has an email that we can certainly add their email information to it if they would prefer. That way the member can get the communication. Like I said, we have been doing the text messages as well to make sure that they are getting that info, and we're also sending out calls, but keep in mind there's limited information that you can provide on a call. But we are trying to communicate as best we can, but I would say if they don't have a resource, they likely have a family member, and we can certainly add that information to our records. Does that help?
Is there any chance, or do you know of anyone in particular who is not getting communication because they don't have? Could you please pass that? If you know who they are, if you could please give Ms. Trish their name, because if she's sending them paper mail, I mean, outside of that, I don't know what else we're going to do. You know.
But they're not getting paper mail. They're not getting anything. And the few I know, you have much more that are not getting.
It sounds like they need to come in
Yeah.
person.
Perhaps if she said
Up to the mic if you'd
How are
like
they
to speak.
supposed to be found if they're not getting paper mail, they're not getting a text message, they're not getting a phone call?
Yeah, I'm puzzled as to how we're supposed to know who they are. You know, unless you have a.
Is it
excuse me,
possible-
unless you have a better option that you'd like to propose.
Is it possible we can send one mail, one stamp, one sheet of paper? Trish knows the 600 that are not getting the communication. Send one piece of paper asking them, what's another way we can communicate with you? I think that would solve the problem.
Can I just make one comment with regard to that? So let's put this in perspective. So let's just say it is 400 members that are not receiving a communication from us. Keep in mind how many staff members I have and how many people want to call through to ask in-depth conversation with regard to a one-pager if I send it to them. Staff would never get their work done, I'll just be honest with you. I don't mind doing it, I'm just trying to, it's more complicated than what I think we're putting out there, because every single time a customer service call comes through, it's a good 15, 30 minutes sometimes on a call. So if you keep that in perspective, within an 8-hour day, the work would never be completed. So even if I send out a one-pager, there's going to be subsequent questions. I can certainly work through any issue, but to send out to 400 to 600 members every single time, most companies these days do not communicate via paper. They are paperless. Lafayette Parish has moved that way in numerous different settings to include new hire open enrollment. We're working towards paperless communications. We do have a website. That's why we started adding it to the website. That way they can get on a computer, and if it's not the member, perhaps a family member can assist them to look on our drop down on that 2024 communication and look at the communication online. So even if they don't have an email, we've got several other resources available to them. So just food for thought, but that's why we moved to include the text messaging. But if for some reason a member is not receiving our communication, please have them reach out to the department. Our information is everywhere. We can certainly provide a resource for them to get them connected, but I'm also going to ask for their assistance too. I need them to work with us in some form or fashion so that we can make sure that we're communicating with them.
And Ms. LaBeouf, staff 2 years ago when we went to the Blackboard Connect actually sent out a snail mail to everyone to collect the information, to have the correct email, the cell phone numbers. So they did a full audit of every retiree by sending it out, collecting it back, and hand entered that information into the system so that we could communicate. So we had previously done this full audit, and then anyone who does retire, we make sure that we have all their information when they leave.
We had previously discussed sending out one mailer. Have we already done that, or how are we working on that?
We have communicated with everybody with regard to the board insurance committee dates. Yes, that was your request
So
that
they
you
all
made.
received, or
Yes.
don't want to say they all received the mail. Mail was sent to each one of them.
So it went out via email, it went out via text, and it went out to those members who do not have anything on record via mail.
Via mail, okay.
Yes.
So the final thing I'll say about that, I mean, we certainly we need to have that communication with everyone, but I find it very hard to believe that if health insurance is one of the handful of very, very important things in people's lives, if they have an issue or a question or concern, they're going to call.
Yes, sir, and I understand some members are not able to. They may be older and not capable of doing that. But again, I ask that those family members, we will work with the family members too. Reach out to us.
Yeah.
We will communicate, add their information to the retiree's record so that they can get those important communications. We're trying several different resources here. I need everyone to try along with it so that they get the communications that they need.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. If there's nothing further, we'll call for the vote.
Two for, none against.
Motion carries. Ms. Mason, do you have any closing remarks?
No, I just would love to encourage everyone to adapt and modernize. I've had a cell phone and an email address for 27 years. So I'm just surprised that our teachers of our community and even our retirees can continue to learn and help us move forward. So we want to reach everyone. We want you to engage. It's, we're sending snail mail about it, but I mean, insurance is so important. Everyone wouldn't be in this room right now if it wasn't important. So I would just love for everyone to try to engage with us and and understand what's happening with our insurance and the insurance crisis that we're in. So we don't want to leave anyone behind. We really don't. Thank you.
Thank you. And in closing, I'd like to state that, just as a reminder, I want to state it publicly, that most bodies who are having meetings like this, who are accepting reports from their consultants or their staff, are not doing so in the manner that we are. They're hearing a report and they're moving on. We are intentionally putting these items as action items so that there's an opportunity for folks to come up and speak publicly about each item. And I just want to remind the public of that this is a little outside of the ordinary, and that we're taking that extra step because we do want to hear different perspectives, and we've accepted questions in cases during public comment that is also not typical. So just wanted to state that publicly, that I think we're going a little bit over and above to make sure that we're addressing the concerns of the community. With no further agenda items, this meeting is adjourned.